I'm going to treat this microphone like it's you talking to me from this phone.
Whoa, when they
Stop showing
don't
off.
know.
You know what? Keep showing off.
Thank you.
Keep
Thank
showing
you.
off.
Thank you.
Keep showing off. Give them everything.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. When they don't know. Come on, Chris. Whoa, whoa, whoa. When they don't know.
They don't know. They don't know.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
They don't.
When they don't know,
They
they
don't
know. Ooh.
When they.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. When they don't know, they know.
They don't know what they don't
Whoa,
know.
whoa, whoa.
They don't know what
When
they don't know.
know, they know.
They don't. When they don't know, they know, or
Yeah.
when they don't know what they don't know.
No, when they don't know, they know. The best thing that ever hit you missed you.
Okay, tell me about that.
My dad and I were driving, I don't know where, and we had my grandfather, his dad, in the car.
All right.
And he was old enough where he was losing some mental capabilities, and he was talking about someone in his life he knew, and he said the best thing that ever hit him, referring to this other man, missed him. And I was in the back seat, and my dad looked in the rearview mirror at me, and his eyes lit up with like, whoa, like it doesn't make sense. And it's so deep that this man, my grandpa, was convinced that the best thing in his life that ever hit him missed him.
I'll think about that
good.
on our drive. I'll try to figure out how that makes any sense. I mean, because I'm committed to your spiritual growth, I'm gonna stay open and think about. There's got to be a way that makes sense.
Yeah,
to me.
About 10 minutes later, in that same conversation, my grandpa was referring to himself, and he said, some point in his life, he said, "I had the world in my hands, but I didn't have any hands." My dad was bug-eyed.
Yeah. Welcome back to the 50 Days of Evolution podcast. I am one of your two hosts, Chris, along with Lindsay.
I am Lindsay Crisp.
And we have our mascot down here, Cashew Baby. And we got Key on the ones and twos.
With his headphones on.
This man is official, y'all. This man is official.
He
Y'all
really
need to
is.
know it. He's a legend. He's a real legend. We've gotten so much love over the last few months as we've upped all of our content, video production game, and this is the man behind it. So shout out to Key.
If you don't know, you know.
Yeah. Your favorite number, 11.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 11.
Mm-hmm.
And Seed of the Soul.
Relationships.
I'm going to read the first paragraph of the chapter.
Okay.
There are certain growing dynamics that can occur only within the dynamic of commitment. Without commitment, you cannot learn to care for another person more than yourself. You cannot learn to value the growth of strength and clarity in another soul, even if that threatens the wants of your personality. When you release the wants of your personality in order to accommodate and encourage another's growth, you attune yourself to that person's soul. Without commitment, you cannot learn to see others as your soul sees them, as beautiful and powerful spirits of light. Well, I mean, the first chapter of the first paragraph in the chapter of relationships, he speaks about commitment. And it seems as though he's going to the path of like relationships as partners.
Mm-hmm.
Not that other relationships aren't committed, but I think the stakes are highest in commitment in spiritual partnerships,
Yeah.
relationships. Talk to me about what that paragraph brings up for you.
Yeah. I love, as reading it, I love the part about letting go of the personality's wants in order to excel the spiritual growth of your partner. In practice, I don't love it as often. And there's just a whole world there. There's, I think sometimes I can, from an external power standpoint, relate to our relationship as though we're both together so that we can build together a life we want, and separately we can have the things we want through being together. It's like, will you support my hopes and dreams? Will you support my hopes and dreams? And yes, and the possibility, the proposition that Gary puts out right there is that one of my key roles in relationship with you can be to give up the wants of my personality in service of the development of your soul, so that I can see you and experience you at a soul to soul level, different than striving for more of what we want. Because what he's spoken about before, and he will get into in the relationship chapter, is we're no longer relating with humans, particularly in the marriage container of basic survival. And so then I think the container illusion I can get into is, okay, well, now you're here to help me get what I want at a personality level. You're here to help me acquire the life of my dreams, the vision I've had of the way I live on the earthly realm. And
I wanna spend some time diving into the sacrifice of the personality's wants and needs for the other's spiritual growth. Because as I walk this path of relationship with you, and the things you just said, like they make me think about how hard the road is, no matter if my personality chooses to take the path that you just described. That's like, you here to support me though, right, Lindsay? You're here. You're supposed to be here to help me get what I want. That's like a personality hijacking the show, and then my personality can hijack the show in the other way, which is like, I'm gonna give you what you want. I'm gonna help you have what you want.
mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm just the martyr. I'm just giving up so much here so that it can all be for you. And that's like, that's not real. That's not the light that can come forth in the seeing the giving and seeing the surrender of my personality's preferences, not as I'm losing anything. It's like, I'm gaining by learning to give. I'm gaining by and living into that gaining. So that's very different than the personality self being like, oh, I'm missing out.
Yeah, I just thought of that Coco Melon song, Share When You Only Have One. It's like, this is our one life. We can share that, truly share our energy, our commitment to growth on a spiritual level. Like, I can share my life force with you as a giving to you. And there's that part from a very young age of my human experience that was fear around letting go of something, even if that something in an adult experience now is my drishti, my eyes set on what I want. Mm-hmm. And it's like,
and I think for every single person, relationship has its unique challenges, and I think that there's also a lot of common areas that many of us face. Yeah. And one is being able to live a life where I can be happy and I can be fulfilled, even if this acute vision of what I want, even if it needs to be wider than that, even if I need to have some agility to consider the life of my partner, the life of my children. And for me, that's been such a huge growing edge because I was an only child. I am an only child to a mom who was always working multiple jobs. I had tons of free time, tons of time to do what I wanted growing up. And like, you know, this relationship has given me the lessons that maybe some people get at least some work out if you have siblings or if you have, like, I mean, for me, it's like, learning to not only consider you, but Gary goes on to say somewhere throughout the chapter, like, understanding that your wants and your needs are just as valid as mine. So that's why I don't like the word consider, because like to consider to me means like, oh, I'll hear that. But it's like, nah, what you're sharing with me that you want, that's on your heart, what you see for our living room, you know what I'm saying? Like those are just as valid. And so like the path for me of expanding possibility of I could be happy in all these different situations that take into account the wants, the needs, and the soul journey of Lindsay. That's a big part. And it's not just allowing, it's not just like considering those things or allowing being in them, right? It's like how I be in them.
Yeah.
Like, and not being in them from like, oh, I'm missing out on something. And that for me is like the biggest challenge is like being in the plan or the event of the day or doing the thing that is for you and having my heart so open that whether it's like working on something with you or supporting you in something, or we're going to go to a restaurant that you wanted to do, like where you wanted to go, being in that moment full from the soul.
Yeah, well, let's take out for a second my wants and needs. Gary talks about the areas that there are for me to evolve. He uses the example of jealousy. That when those things show themselves on the level of ready to be healed, which is also the level of active and out here, that
active in our relationship.
That at a soul partnership level, at a committed level, we're here to work and evolve. That will ignite in you what is there to be healed. Like the pairing of like, when, we see this in our own relationship.
I want to stay on that
with like
example too.
Yeah, we see this with like anxious and avoidant attachment styles. It's like what there is when I come out anxious, I'm like, we got to talk about this right now. That can flare up. You're like, whoa, I'm going this way, and no, and then that, so I see that dynamic in our own relationship and with other people I love, that like when the spiritual evolution is not at the center, it can seem so like, oh, well, this is just why this relationship doesn't work. This can't work. And this is so random, but one of this like woman I follow on Instagram who like got really famous, and I didn't start following her until she was famous, but she's had like a really quick run. She put a post up today that was like, hey, as many of you have heard, me and my husband are not, we're no longer together. We filed for divorce today, and I'm so grateful for the father he's going to continue to be to our girls, and we're going to co-parent, and we just weren't right for each other in marriage. And it's not like I know her at all, but I had this moment of like, and not to say that every divorce is like not part of the process of someone's evolution. I don't know. And I want for me, and maybe this is why I wanted for her in that moment, I want people around me to be the campaigners of like, no, Lindsay, when you're in the clash what feels like the clash of parts of me that need to evolve and parts of him that need to evolve. Like, that's the spiritual work we're in.
Well, what I hope for her, whoever this person is, and what I hope for any relationship that comes to an end, whether it's in marriage or a different container, like, for that sense of completion and wholeness, and like not a sense of like something was wrong here, from a perspective of like the personality talking. And so if a relationship is complete at a level of, oh, this is complete, I think that'll be felt. I think that'll be felt by the person. And what I'm really interested in that comes up so much in this chapter is, how do we put into practice being in daily interaction and being in the moments where, to go back to the jealousy, like to be in the moments where your jealousy comes up, it sparks in me, okay, I'm a be distant, because I'm not dealing with that. And understanding that the payoff of whatever power I'm going to get out of distancing myself from you, or you know, whatever you're wanting to receive from bringing the jealousy forth, like to understand that winning, having power over one another at that level is, it's like once you know better, you can't like not know. It's like knowing that, like, okay, if I distance myself from you, whatever I'm going to gain through that power struggle is like, if the personality gets its power in this relationship, I'm not going to grow and Lindsay's not going to grow. So I got to be willing to choose a different response than I've chosen however many years I learned that response, and then open it out to other scenarios. And like the default response, or the response that protects myself initially when I feel threatened, coming into relationship with somebody stunts that, the growth is stunted whenever I choose to just live those out. And the opportunity and the opportunity in relationship is to choose something different. And what I've seen in our relationship is that, like, the stakes, like the same situation coming over and over again, if I choose distance, the pain becomes more and more of playing out the same scenario over and over again. And it also starts to become like, oh yeah, I know this isn't going to work.
When the cost is higher to the relationship, the more either of us plays out a pattern that on a conscious level we know is not the path of love. I think about, like, growing up in the yoga world, there's been this conversation about, like, the different ways you can take a spiritual path, and there's many. And the two most extreme or opposite ends of the spectrum are, you go off in the Himalayan mountains, you get in a cave, you meditate, you have food brought to you, or you have a bowl you go into town and beg with. And it's like the stepping away from the human earth experience to go connect fully with the divine, and give all of your time and life force and energy to making that connection and developing that connection. And then there's also the path of the yogi, the yogini, who is in the world and of the world still. What's a yogini? It's a female yogi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's the person who is in the relationship or is in a marriage, has a family, has a job, is on the spiritual path, connecting with the divine in this matrix of responsibility. And what Gary's speaking to is that what is provided there, it's not like one is better than the other. I don't believe. I feel like if you go meditate in the caves, great. If you're in a family, great. But what Gary is speaking to is there are things that you as my partner can help illuminate for me that my soul, and I can know this because here I am with you, my soul, that lesson is not for solitude in a cave. And so, and maybe one lifetime I was doing the solitude in a cave thing, or maybe it's coming, but it's the approach to another human, to all humans, and so magnified in one-on-one committed relationships that we use mirror all the time. You will be a mirror for me that I can choose to look in or not, of what there is for me to evolve.
Yeah, it's a choice of the path. And I'm not, like, I don't think that the path of relationship is like a higher level or lower level than the path of going into town begging. I think they're totally different lessons that all come with, like, there's the comforts that can be had of choosing a life of always being around people and not being alone. And then there's the comforts that can be had when the only thoughts are yours and there's no one to disagree with you, or no person for you to perceive as more powerful than you, or you more powerful than them. But what I do think is that's so unique about relationship is that mirror. Mm-hmm. I feel like that mirror that you brought up is an opportunity in every, like, even since we've been in this conversation just now, you know, I've felt the mirror of, like, what listening to you articulate yourself, and then from my boundary of Chris, like, making meaning and having agreeances, disagreeances, fears, affirmations, like, all, you know, all, and I get to see that, like, how I'm experiencing Lindsay right now, that's my creation.
Yeah.
You know, and I get that time and time again. And so I think that's like, well, you know, I think if oneness is a truth that is important to someone spiritually, I think that relationship is a beautiful way to express that belief, and because I can know that like you're in my field of experience highlighting things that are coming out of me. So I need you to learn more about myself. And so I think that that's really unique and and hard sometimes.
I am, what's the word? It's like judgmental, skeptical, avoidant of times when I experience people who are out of relationships and out of a marriage, maybe out of several relationships in a row, and are going off on what is wrong with that person they were with, and is like, just, you know, the lit up about what that person did wrong.
Yeah, sure.
And the lit up about who that person was. And I appreciate that part of me that's like, can hear the container that person's coming from, different than jumping in that story with them of like, oh yeah, Greg must have been just a horrible soul or whatever it is. I don't know who in my life helped teach me that, but I think it's a really important thing. You bring up the mirror and you bring up the relationship of seeing yourself through bouncing your ideals and your thoughts off of the boundary of me back into the boundary of you. There's so much opportunity that we get to do that in a relationship. And there's so much opportunity where we get to keep waking up to who we are, big soul sense. And Gary talks about that with the work that we do in relationship and commitment, that impacting the personal level and that impacting the group unconsciousness, or like group is not the word I want, collective unconsciousness. Everybody moves a step forward. Everybody takes that win when one person says, I'm going to look at my opportunity to evolve in this.
Yeah, there's a beautiful simplicity in it, and it's like love, and it's growing in love with you in my life. And like there's like love has a powerful binding thread within this universe, I feel. And so learning love in this way, that's like, okay, and first off, like my feeling, there must be something ultra divine about the potential of monogamous relationships, because why have humans been doing it? You know, like the potential of it, and why has it been written about? You know,
Yeah.
so
And then also, why is it such an uphill battle? Because no one who's been in one says, oh, that's a walk in the park. And countless amazing teachers talk about, you want to grow in life, you want to meet new versions of yourself. Well, choose the uphill.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go walk the easy path.
So I'm like I affirm that. Like I feel like that is so possible, and it's like that. It's just like love. Choosing love time and time again, and learning how to navigate through a world where, like, I can live in my power. I can express my power in a way that doesn't require me to distance myself from you. I can express my power, live the life of my dreams in a way that also supports you doing that, hugs you in, cares for you, nurtures you, supports you. And like, if that's anyone's intention in a relationship, and for whatever reason the relationship ends, what I would hope to hear from that person is recollections of choice and responsibility and ownership and wholeness. So whenever you talk about like the weariness you get when somebody's in a has gone through a breakup and is talking about how bad the other person is, I think one of the things that maybe your subconscious or intuition was aligned to that didn't feel right is like the blaming another person is like an unloading of responsibility. And so whether it's somebody talking about what's wrong in their former relationship, or what's wrong with their job, or why they're unfulfilled, I'm always weary of someone who's placing blame.
Yeah.
And I'm not weary of them. I'm just weary of, I know that I'm disempowered when I'm blaming.
Yeah.
Whether I'm blaming some exes, or blaming bosses, or blaming coaches, or
I've never
blaming
seen
Sky.
the path of blame end up at the path of love.
No, so you know, like I am not here to judge. Like, from the outside looking in, I don't know what happened in the relationship. I don't know what happened, why any relationship ends, but I do know that within oneself, who's like has ended a relationship, like the power for you, the lessons for you are in saying like, I created the entire path of that relationship, and I created its dissolution. Like, that was all me.
Yeah.
And like, whatever that, I think that's a powerful place to experience being in relationships, being in relationship, or getting out of relationships. And that's the most powerful place to call in a relationship.
And no doubt, what can seem like gnarly stuff can happen in a relationship. And one of the biggest themes that Gary teaches throughout this whole book is that life is not a savage, incompassionate, unjust experience where we're either the victor or the victim. Life is compassionate and rooted in teaching and balanced in karmic response. And so, yeah, I could end up in a relationship, I could experience a relationship where something I deem as bad happens. And that can be a karmic debt from lifetimes ago. And I don't need to know why that happened. I don't need to know why that person did X, Y, and Z. What I have control essentially over is what is my response to that? And how does that response perpetuate the next round of karmic response? Because there's a totally different karma to that. Relationship's no longer an active relationship. I'm no longer speaking to that person. Then the anger of forget them. I can't even believe it. Like,
but let's stay on for those out there who are in the relationship that's the grindy rub and they want to stay in it because they are committed and they are committed to the path of love and they love this person and they see the value that's there for them.
I want to
spend some time there. My first, every interaction is a chance to open yourself, experience being disagreed with, experience what the person says that you disagree with, experience your partner coming at you with their fear pattern, whether it be jealousy, whether it be being small, whether it be being mopey, whether it be being rage, and watch yourself practice opening and staying in love in those moments where, oh, if I experience jealousy, I cut love off. Oh, if I experience being disagreed with when I truly feel like I'm right, I cut love off. There's so much value in and I'm saying this from experience day after day, watching my body go through its sensations that would by default disconnect me from loving you, push you away, and go through those and knowing I can feel this and I can choose love. And that's where I feel my body aligning with what Gary's talking about, how the universe, everything is for your good. Mm-hmm. Everything is, so that allows me to relate to jealousy, judgment in a different way because I'm experiencing, maybe for the first time, not hating or judging, complaining. I don't agree with it, but I'm in love. I'm not hating or judging, being disagreed with. Maybe there's something here for me to learn. Mm-hmm. Staying open, and that's it's different.
One of the things Gary talks about, so in terms of our relatedness across all of humanity, our relationships throughout humanity, is that your work is all of our work. I just recorded the meditation for this week's 30-minute daily meditations on this chapter, and I kept using the phrase, your work is all of our work. Gary talks about what an individual experience is that is there for its evolution, is what we're all needing to evolve. So you're staying open, you're choosing love, you moving a step farther into the path of love, out of the path of judgment, is all of us doing that. He also talks about an individual soul's realm of influence, and that as a soul evolves on its own path of healing and coming into full light, into its highest frequency, the container at which it's given influence will be increased. He talked about a new soul recently incarnated from an animal, maybe coming into a smaller village in the world where there's a little more space to learn how this human thing goes, not as much realm of influence, and some time to ease in. And then he talks about people who have larger realms of influence, family, business. He ends up, I think, around the realm of like politician. And that the larger our realm of influence, also the higher the stakes are. And with the higher stakes, the higher the temptation is. And therefore, the bigger the step back that can be taken for not being in the path of light, for choosing the fear and choosing external power. And I think about that in terms of an individual relationship, like as two people get really, really close to breaking through a pattern that breaks through or moves us all forward, the tension that's there with like the temptation to back out of it, the temptation to go be with someone else. You know, that snake starts talking like, oh, I bet so-and-so over there never acts like that, or they're not going to trigger you in this way, or they're not going to be that person in your life. And the more that intensifies, because what's on the other end of moving through that is a step forward into freedom for all of us. And that's really hard work. It's not just really hard work. It's actually huge work, because it's the work. It's doing the work for all of us. And somewhere in one of these chapters, he talks about, and actually it was the relationship chapter, he talks about Jesus Christ on the cross and the suffering of moving into that life sacrifice that was Jesus taking on all of the karmic debt of humanity up until that point. And that when we work through things within relationship, we are being asked to feel, to embody that collective unconsciousness of anger, jealousy, fear, shame, whatever. And it's like really hard.
Consciousness of it. Not the collective unconsciousness of it. We're being asked to feel the collective consciousness of that emotion of fear, of anger.
I meant unconsciousness, and I mean that in the terms of like the parts of the subcurrent of the human experience. It's like it's all down there for us to work on, and it's like we have to like pull it up out into the light.
Okay, collective unconsciousness.
Yeah, that okay. Like who's willing to go down there?
Okay. And the going down there is going inside of yourself.
Mm-hmm. And the bigger that work gets, the more the personality sends off sirens of don't do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, of course, by no coincidence, like the previous chapter to this was addiction. And like, I'm willing to believe that like the thoughts that keep me distant, the thoughts that keep me superior, the thoughts that keep me away from negative emotion are addictions. And I'm addicted to those thoughts because they protect me from things I don't want to feel. And so, yeah, it's gnarly. Like loving is gnarly and loving is big. And like when I feel my personality saying, no, don't soften to her. No, don't listen. No, you got to prove your point. You got to prove your point right here. I understand that that personality voice is fighting for sameness. It's fighting for physical survival. It's fighting for security. It's fighting for external power. And so I know that to thrive with you in the long run, parts of my personality will need to continue to not have their way and die off. And that can be like this long, miserable, bleed out death, or it can be like one where I align to my soul and I walk it with courage and honor, and like let my light shine, and understand like, yeah, that pain's there. That pain is going to be a natural process of choosing love, of feeling triggered, of feeling threatened, and good.
Yeah. I can really, there's a part of my soul, these teachings really help me. I can really get down with being uncomfortable and not my personality not getting its way when that pain that's felt initially helps someone else not feel as much of that pain. In the terms of like the work I do around anger is work for everyone around anger. I had it in the last teacher training we led here at Kali Yoga Center. We were talking about meditation, and one of the trainees came up and was saying like, I just have such a hard time meditating. I just like the sitting down, the stopping. I don't know how, oh God, how do I do it? And I said, that's great. And I just had the sense that her and I were both going to relate with if I projected this like younger woman in this example. So I said, okay, you have a hard time meditating. So does a 15-year-old girl in Australia who we don't know. When you sit down and meditate, when I sit down and meditate, when this 15-year-old sits down and meditates, that hurdle is going to be just a little bit lower for her.
When you sit down and meditate, it makes it easier for your partners to sit down and meditate, unless you sit down and meditate and then get up from your meditation and look at them like, why aren't you meditating?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many people are going to watch this or listen to this and it's like, I'm on the spiritual path, but my partner's not? You know? And one way to not get them on there is for you to be high up there on your spiritual path looking down on them. Because that love also requires us to love.
Yeah,
period.
and that's like that's part of person A's said spiritual path, is that they have chosen said person B. Like chosen on a conscious level and on a soul karmic contractual level. It's like they're your teacher too, even if you think they're not on the spiritual path. Like, why do you think you're with them? They're your teacher.
Like
you're not with them so you can learn to judge them more.
There's like changing yourself so that the world around you changes makes so much sense to me, because right now my consciousness is Chris, and if it's not Chris and it localizes somewhere else, my consciousness will be there, and I'll only ever as a consciousness have my perspective. I won't ever be like not me as the world. And so like really okay, I want the world to be better. I need to change how these eyes are looking out on the world, so I see the beauty, so that I see the love, so that I see the healing earth. And I need to play a part in those things and awaken those things within me, awaken those ways that I can be loving in any given scenario. Not self-righteously loving and approving, like love in the heart, in love. And that is the shift. So like you say, that's great news.
That's great news. It's the good news is.
Yeah,
The good news is you want to change the world. You want to see less anger in the world. You want to see less separation in the world. You want to see less judgment in the world. Be less judgmental. Be less angry. Be less separate. That's the work. The illusion of the personality, of the physical plane that we get to come learn on, says, oh no, it's all out there. You got to go out there and do it. But here I am, one of billions of humans, and I have access to it all. And it's all mine because it's all ours.
Relationship. See y'all next time. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Share with somebody. Yeah.
We'll see y'all next time.